Hello, welcome to the Comic Coach Podcast with me, Em Stroud. How to have impact and leadership in life. And I'm very excited. I'm always excited, but I'm very excited today because I am joined by the fabulous, the very lovely Bronac McNeill.
Hello. How you
How are
doing?
you? Are you all right?
I'm good. I'm good. It's a bit of a croaky throat, so I'm not usually this sexy.
I mean, it is quite a sexy voice that you've got going on. I mean, this is your perfect opportunity, isn't it? For you to do sort of late night radio. It's like,
Yeah.
hi,
Yeah.
welcome to me. I'm really nice and low and everything else like that,
Yeah.
you know.
As
And
opposed,
how is the start of September? How is it going for you? Because obviously it's like that new term feeling, that new energy. How is it for you?
yeah. I've been at quite a few events last week, and it was
Nice.
very much like everybody's in there. You know, when you had Mufti Day, or when you went to school and they didn't have the when you went to school and they didn't have the uniform, and you were like, everybody's in their brand new clothes, or we've really chose. It was like everybody was dressed in their best of clothes.
I
It was
know.
so funny and so excited, and oh my
It's
God, I haven't
amazing,
seen
isn't it?
you
It's
in
like we're all sort
summer.
of indoctrinated of like, it's September, it's a new term. It's like, I can bring out my new pencil case. It's like, come
Yeah,
on, we're grown ass women now, we're grown off people. But
yeah.
yeah, it's funny. And then, and then you go to different countries. So I just came back from, you can hate me for this and regular listeners will know this, but I've just come back from having a month in Australia.
Bless you. It's
And
hard life.
I know, it's really tough, really hard. That's right, it wasn't. But I came back and it's so interesting because their school year starts in January. And they were like,
Yes. Yeah.
hey, you're on summer holidays, and they were just trying to get their head round it. And they were like, I cannot imagine starting a year in September. But I was like, I can't imagine. Because in essence, we have two sort of New Years, don't we? We have September and then we have January,
Yeah.
So anyway, no,
Yeah. No, Australia's weird. Did you get bitten?
no, I didn't get bitten because I went in the summer,
I
as
got
in our
bit.
summer. No, I didn't get bitten. No. No, and also I just must go, don't bite me, I'm going to repel you, and all of these kind of things. Don't get me, I don't want it. No, 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 I didn't get. I tell you what, I didn't get bitten the whole time I was in Australia, but I went to Nottingham to do a gig and got bitten by 3 mosquitoes. What is that? What is that?
Well, when I was in Australia in my first 3 weeks, I got bitten. I was in a place called Christmas Creek in the
Hmm.
outback with a
Hmm.
dear friend of mine whose stepbrother lived there. So we went to visit him first. And basically, Grizzly Adams wouldn't have lived in the shed that they put us in. And I got really badly bitten, and so badly bitten that they had to put me on the school bus to get me into the nearest town to get me into Brisbane because they thought if I have another night there, I'll probably die of toxicity. That is a whole routine. But in suffice to say, eventually got on one school bus, next school bus, onto the coach, and I was writing a card as you did in those days, postcard, and I thought, I'll count the bites on my leg because they were so risen you could count the individual bites. You could also count the different types of insect. There was about at least three different types of insect bite, and
Yeah.
there was 133 bites on
I
one
mean,
leg alone.
what? I mean, this is the downside of always being a high achiever. You even had to be a high achiever with how many insect bites you get. I mean, ah,
133 just on my
gross.
right leg. Yeah.
I mean, but and on that thing of high achiever and moving away from insect bites before everybody's like, that's gross, that's horrible there. Now, all my regular listeners will know. And obviously, this is a fairly new podcast, so welcome if you just joined us. And I always like to start the podcast with 6 questions all around impact. Are you ready? There was like a face there. If you weren't watching this, there was, bro was like, okay, yeah, fine. And it's amazing. You can suddenly get everybody who's super, super bright, does really well. And they suddenly go, questions. It's like, oh, I don't know. Am I ready? I think I am. Okay, question number
It's
one.
about, it's about, oh my God, are you turning the light? And especially as a photographer, you're turning the lens on me. That's quite uncomfortable.
I know, I appreciate this. It's like you are normally the observer, like I am as the clown. It's that whole thing. And suddenly it's like, no, bro, it's all about you. So, question number one, I've gone into quiz show mode. Who has had the greatest impact in your life? Who has had the greatest impact in your life?
Mother Teresa. No. Sorry, no. Straight answers. I don't know. Um, I don't think any one particular person, I'd love to say my mother or my father or whatever, but not particularly. My dad, I'm very like my dad, and I'm very honest as the day is long. If I could tell you in one relationship of 4 years that I lied twice. and once was because they liked a shirt that I bought, and I told them it was Reese, but it was actually Marks and Spencer's. It's
Okay.
not. It's like
Okay.
those little things. So
Yeah.
that way, but I feel. I think I've thought about this before actually. There's a person that comes into my life in different forms. And essentially they're a person that would, if they said, here's a pair of slingbacks, can you climb Everest? I'd be halfway up it before I'd say, I'm not sure if I could do that, because they believe in me so much, and they're
Right.
able to sell me or sell something to me so well that why should I doubt me? You know?
Mm.
So
That's a really lovely way of, you're right, because different people, of course, different people impact us. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast, because I'm fascinated about how we let those people into our worlds, because sometimes those people that can really impact us can be really scary because they're saying or seeing something about us that we perhaps don't see about ourselves. And then also, how do we then allow it so that we can then shift and grow? Very good. Question number 2. This is me being quiz show master. What keeps you motivated in what you do?
I have this awful feeling that I'm running out of time. And I know we are, and I know
Yeah,
but
yeah.
um and it's quite funny because recently everybody's saying to me, and I just did 2 family weddings, one that I was photographed and one that I was just not photographing and being a clown. And and I when the first one, my little cousins, I mean they're in their 20s and 30s, we're all
Yeah.
sitting with my niece, and as I walked past, they went, "You see, she is," and I'm like, "She is what?" Knowing that they were talking about it, and they went, "ADHD." I think, and everybody's telling me that I am it, and I'm like, so it's just me,
Yeah.
What do you want me to do? Take pills to stop it? I'm not. I can't. This is me. I don't want to do that. But I am very much everything or a plank. And I don't mean a
Okay.
fitness plank. I mean a plank
Yeah.
on the sofa, dying and watching TV. And that's how I rest. Or I am full throttle.
Mm.
And am the last year or two, I'm trying to work out how to do an in between.
Yeah.
Um, but I
And that in
just,
between piece is really interesting, isn't it? And I think for
yeah,
people like you and I, because I'm similar and, definitely have elements of ADHD, and it's that thing of, yeah, that motivation piece when it's just calm and you're not on stage, or, both of our equivalents are on stage. And it's that piece of, how do I find, and I'm really playing with this, it's half the reason that I want to do the podcast about impact. It's like, how do I find those moments, and actually how do I start to enjoy it where it's just calm and I'm content and I'm just allowing myself to be, as opposed to all on or just very, very tired,
yeah.
And it's an interesting piece.
My I have a few little mantras that I sort of try and remember that keep me going through that. And one of them is, this too will pass.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it's like, don't get too stressed. I do need
Yeah.
to rest,
Yeah.
and don't get too stressed about it, and it will be fine. And like, I don't drink milk, and I don't. So
Are you anti-cow?
I
Or
love cows too much.
okay.
But my joke about that is that I can come in. Oh, a lot of my work is because people don't even come into work on a Monday and a Friday. Well, most of my actual shooting is usually Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, I'm like, so I close the door on quite often I can close the door on a Thursday night and not open it until Monday, because I don't even need to go out for milk. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah,
the
yeah,
milk
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And by that stage I'll be like so low, because I made an effort to go out and see anybody, but I live so much in the moment.
Mm.
Excuse me. I live so much in the moment that I forget to plan a weekend, and then all the 9 to 5ers are like, yeah, no, I've booked my weekend. So you're like, it's a weekend again, a bank holiday weekend. I think I'm the only one in the UK that hates them, because
Right.
because everybody's gone away, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
didn't book
No one told me
anything.
about the memo. The memo.
I
I mean,
didn't get it. Yeah.
it's interesting, that whole thing about time, and I think as business owners, I think, I think it is really easy. And I think to go, I'm doing and I'm doing, and then the weekends come and you might be doing other stuff. And actually, one of the things that I've worked really hard at is to make sure that I have my weekends and I'm aware of them. But I have to think about that. We're talking 6 months in advance. So I've got my whole system about my rainbow diary. So I'm like, that's my weekend with my friends. That's my weekend with my son. That's my weekend with my missus. Because if I don't do that, nothing will happen. And then I get a bit annoyed because I'm like, why have I not seen anybody that I really like? But has taken that's taken a real conscious effort to shift into that level. Anyway, question number 3, you're doing brilliantly.
I'll
Go
try
on,
and do
go on.
that, but also even if
Yeah.
that when you're talking about that, it makes me a bit claustrophobic.
Yeah. And it does quite often for lots of people, but then the thing is then because I just do it with colours, if I then don't feel like doing it, it's okay to take it out. But if I
Okay.
haven't put it in, then it's not going to happen. And when I think
Okay.
about, so for example, me and my uni friends, we're really good. We all live in different parts of the country, in some cases the world, but we're really good when we see each other. We then put another weekend in, and it's normally about 6 months to 8 months in advance because that's our, and that's just about to come up, and I've got this red weekend, and it's like, yay, getting to see my friends, and it's
That's
so
great.
joyous to have that, and they're the people that really impact my life. So question number 3, how do you
Great.
play? How do you play?
Well, one of my new things is pub quizzes, but I play by
Nice.
I play by bringing people together, and sounds trite. I love what I do. I love meeting people. I love playing with personalities. Even basic, and I don't do basic headshots. I do portraits, and I won't do like, I'm not a skilled I say that some companies want you to do X amount in a day, and I go no, because I love meeting people. So like there's a guy at one of the companies, banking. I don't do a lot of banking. I'm basically in advertising, so you can play with people, but in banking when they're all stiff and whatever else. And I actually got this guy said, "Can we comb your hair?" Yeah, yeah, he did it. He was a bit of a Boris Johnson. He's never had his hair combed in the office yet, and he's CEO. I don't look at who they are. I just deal with them as Bob or whoever they are. So I do that, and not in a malicious, in totally a playful way. And they go out feeling the love. I think I get all my energy from people, but I very, very much love dogs. And
I mean, who doesn't?
I have indulged myself this last couple of years where friends, I don't think I could have a dog because I'm in a flat and I love dogs too much. I wouldn't want to put them through it. I think a lot of people have dogs, and I found out recently, and my has 2 dogs and ex-girlfriend, and she loves her dogs. She'd give her dogs a kidney, but as a transplant, not as a piece of food.
Yeah.
But she doesn't like other dogs. She doesn't like other dogs. Any dog, I'd get down on the floor in the middle of a meeting with a dog.
Yeah.
I'd be talking to the Queen, and the dog would come up, and I'd be on the floor playing with the dog. So my friends now, if they're going away, they give me the dogs. One of my photographers, one of the girls, photographers who works with me, when she's on a shoot, I say, "Oh, can I have taco, please?"
I mean, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Suddenly, when I got
I'm
Charlie,
a dog mother, stepmother.
I have a lot of friends who are like, yeah, if Charlie needs looking after, I'm fine. I'm fine. So yeah, no, I get it. Yeah. And also, I think for me, dogs inherently help people become playful,
They
because
make me laugh.
and they make you laugh and they do stuff and they always love you and all of that kind of good stuff. Yeah, dogs are good. Obviously, cats are fine too. Other
When you
animals
live
are
on your
available.
own,
Yeah.
excuse me, when you're living on your own, you don't hear your voice. I don't have a lot of internal monologue. Being ADHD, stuff comes out, and I'm like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, I'm like, what was that noise? It was me laughing with the Chihuahua doing something silly, or you know what I mean? And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh my God,
yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. What one action, this is question number 4, in case you haven't worked it out. What one action have you taken in the last year that's really impacted your life?
The last year, It's going to be very deep.
Go on.
I tripped and bust both ankles, and 28th of July last year, and went into the hospital. It was like, it's a stand-up routine just talking about that. But the doctor came and said, okay, the surgeon said, right, okay, we'll operate tomorrow morning, but you have to make sure that your leg is upright or up in the air, no matter what the nurses say. Keep your leg as high as possible so it doesn't swell. I'm like, okay. And I think a lot of people who are a bit clownish like us have an up, a high, and a very low.
Mm-hmm.
And I was lying in the dark, trying to sleep, but not being able to sleep. And having my foot was like,
Yeah,
even
of
the
course.
nurse walked past in the morning and went, "Darling, are you okay down there?" Like,
Yeah.
but in the middle of the night, I just was like, okay, this is decision time. The hardest thing about getting well will be keeping my mental health positive. And I did. And I think
Well done.
that was, I was in a wheelchair, bust both ankles, and I got back and I'm walking and running and PT and, like gym 3 times a week and back 100%. But I couldn't have done that if I hadn't have literally had the conversation with myself, right? You've got to make sure that this doesn't go deep down, because
Yeah.
depression is the one thing. That conversation of a black dog following you, I feel that quite a lot in my life.
Okay.
But I was like, nope, we acknowledge that he's there, but we're not gonna let him catch up.
And I think there's something so powerful, and thank you for sharing that with me, because I think there's something so powerful, isn't there, about that conscious choice and that really going, okay, I've got different options here. And when we really take that action to go, no, this is how I'm going to, that's the way I'm going to go, it's extraordinary what can happen. I've met in the last couple of weeks, I've met some really awesome people doing gigs, etc. And a couple of them have just said, I just made the decision that I was going to be happier, and I am. And it's hard because the world is throwing loads of different stuff at me, but actually, I'm the only one that's in charge of me. So I think there's something really powerful about allowing ourselves to go, okay, and I think as an action to take to go, how do I want to be in the world? How do I want to be showing up? How do I want to think? Because we can't do anything about anybody else, but we can with ourselves. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. How do you take care of yourself? You've kind of gently alluded to with the PT, but how do you take care of yourself?
Time with dogs, I think, is one of the
Yeah.
healthiest things that I do. And
Yeah.
I would love a little dog, but I just don't. There's times when I
At the
work.
right time, it will happen. At the
Yeah,
right
there's
time, it will
just
happen.
times, as soon as I go, yeah, I'd love a little dog, and then I get 3 big pieces of work and I'm away for, or maybe sleeping for about 3 hours, and I wouldn't have had time, and
Yeah.
um, away for days. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure I do. I try
Okay.
my best. I go to therapy.
Hmm.
As I said, PT a couple of times a week. I have had gym memberships and end up letting them lapse, or you're paying a lot to keep their lights on and you're not there. So I've decided I'm
I
paying
think we've all
for.
been there, haven't we? Oh,
Yeah,
that gym looks amazing. Oh, look, I've been suckered in. Oh, look, and they've got lovely changing rooms and everything else like that. How often have you
yeah,
been? Twice.
yeah. Where now I'm going, and I won't let the trainer down, and it's a
Mm,
small private gym, and I'm very lucky to be able to do that.
mm.
Um, it means well, a dear friend of mine once said, when I said I couldn't afford the gym, she said, Bruna, how much do you, when you go out and have, an Irish drinker, so I might not drink all week, but I'll go out and I will go mental with drink. I'll be like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, 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 and not even think of the cost.
Yep,
I wouldn't know the price of a drink.
yep.
Um, and then not drink again and say, no, I have no money and I can't afford a gym. So that's my attitude was, right, okay, gym is what's going to keep me moving. And especially my job being so physical that,
Yeah,
and I'm carrying and I'm having to, and actually standing still for a long time is quite hard if you're not fit. But so during months like August and whatever, especially where I'm
yeah.
not working too hard and maybe all desk work, it means that my body's still moving. So
Yeah.
that's one. And I get my back cracked a lot, which is one of my
I mean, I was
favorite
so there
things.
with you, but back cracking, no, don't need that. But like, it makes me go like
I
that. So
love
we're going
it.
to move on to the next question because it's might go.
I love
And
it.
then finally on the quick questions that are quite often not that quick. So what have you been thinking about in the last couple of days? What's been really mooching in your head in the last couple of days?
I watched a great documentary on Trump last night. Should we be afraid? The answer is yes. Be very
Okay.
afraid.
Okay.
Um, um, time. I'm disappearing again. Started a big project. I started a project well before COVID, and then COVID hit, and I've just been distracted. And as the business is getting a bit busier all the time, and then I get less time to do my own personal project, which was
Mm.
actually a start. I wanted to do something that I really wanted to do, but also it was to fill the time that I didn't have work, so that I was
Okay.
keeping in practice.
Yeah.
And I look back and I'm like going, shoot, I really need to get that moving again.
Mm. And
But
it's such an interesting one, isn't it? Time and I think the thing is that when your work is creative, there's a real discipline about how you make sure that you then have time for your own creative projects. And people quite often ask, oh, have you got, you've got a business and you're doing a show and stuff. And I'm like, because I use my rainbow diary system. So I have a week blocked out, not every month, but most months where I'm like, it's just creative. So, my new show, the M Show, Tales from a Little Laughing Lesbian, is going to be going up in just off the West End, and then I'll take it on tour. That would
Cool.
not happen. I wouldn't have written it. I wouldn't be ready to do it. Almost. I've got rehearsals with an awesome director, but I wouldn't be ready to do it if I hadn't created that space.
Yeah.
Because businesses and having a kid and having a dog and having a wife suddenly, but it's that discipline. But I think you're right, and time is very much something that I've been really pondering, of that slowness and just being very conscious of how am I showing up and what am I expecting of myself. And I'm curious because you are a photographer. So for my new listeners and regular listeners who might not have heard of you, you are a super, and I don't say this just to blow smoke up your ass, you are a very talented photographer. Like you sent a couple of photos, you have a way of seeing things. And I'm really curious, when you're in that mode and you're being the observer, what do you really notice? Is it an energy that you're picking up on, or is it sense of the whole events? Or are you kind of looking for a spark of, that person's really impacted me, so I'm going to catch them then? What is it that you start to see, if you can put it into a tangibility thing like that?
Um, I'm very emotive, so I pick up on people's stuff. One of the, I used to do a lot of political photography and stuff, but like Northern Ireland harsh stuff. The beauty of what I do now is lots of the events or portraits. I'm seeing people at their best and I'm making them shine a little bit more. That's how I sort of feel. Um, my clients love me because I never put out a bad photograph. I always re-edit when I've got a beautiful group of female photographers who work with me, and I always re-edit their work because knowing the personalities. And I think a lot of people don't see what would be attractive, and I don't mean that you have to have a symmetrical face or da 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 da.
Yeah.
I think I see an inner light in most people. But I get enthused by things that people are enthusing about. Like you, if you're on stage, like I've seen, I don't know whether I should drop names, but a head of one of the top 5 channels giving a keynote speech, and I'm trying to work out whether how anonymous I should make them, but she's a stunning woman, knows her piece, knows what is there because she knows her stuff,
Yeah.
but was actually really nervous
Mm.
on stage and held on to the lectern like her knuckles were white. She was like this.
Right.
And there was no way that I was going to put a shot out of her like that. And
Mm.
I what I do is if I'm doing a conference, and I'm very lucky and I love my clients, and very rarely am I doing a conference that is something that I have no understanding of.
Yeah.
So I get into the subject anyway, but I will usually photograph you on stage, and within 20 minutes of you going on stage, your photograph will be up on Instagram and socials and really help promote the conference, if that's what we sorted out, and great. And this person wasn't there, and I really wanted to make sure that there was something good. And it was just when she got to her last paragraph that you could see she relaxed. So I was there. It was a 45-minute speech, and I was there
waiting.
And then she relaxed and she did one of these.
Okay.
And it is a beautiful shot, but it took forever. I sort of feel like sometimes I feel like I'm on safari, like in the old days when you tried to shoot a big, the big animal or whatever. But I'm shooting, that thing. It's like I shot Gordon Brown last year at the Advertising Association's lead conference, and it was in the QE2 building in Westminster, and it's a big old austere brutalist building, and the stage is reasonably high, and he's a walker, and he had a mic that he was on his ear, so he was able to he paced, and it was like, and I wanted to make sure, and I very much, every picture tells a story, so like I do a lot of film work as well, and I do the same setup in my films, which it's been pointed out to me, but every picture tells a story. So I will make sure that I have one shot that will say the person, they'll be in their best, really expressive, and it'll say the logo of the company behind. So I know I'll work out eventually. And I sat and it was like half hunched down, but not quite hunched.
Fortunately, she goes to a gym, kid, so she's fine now. She could do that for hours.
I couldn't, and that was the funny thing. And I got really stiff. I was there for ages, and I got really stiff. And because I knew that he paced, and he got to that stage, and the logo would be behind him, and blah blah blah. And I got there, and eventually, like I'd got other shots in the meantime, but I knew this was going to be my hero shot. And I was there, and he eventually did it, and I clicked, and I was almost doing this. I was so excited. And then I tried to get up, and that was when I was very, very stiff. I could barely get up. I was like, I think I might have to ask him to help me up.
Yes, yeah. Hi, Gordon Brown. Please can you help me get up? Photographer stuck on the moment. But it's so interesting because
I think it is. It's that trying to make sure that someone. My thing is not. I'm not the war photographer. I used to do bits and pieces and stuff like that in Northern Ireland, but I'm not that photographer. I'm capturing, and even doing that, I'm capturing an emotion, and I'm storytelling.
That's the thing about photography, isn't it? I think it's so impactful, and no doubt everybody that's listening to this is now, just if you go through your own mind, there will be photos that will have stayed with you, whether it's a personal one, whether it is a war shot, whether it's a beautiful scene, whatever it is. But photography impacts us in a way, and you look at Instagram, the whole thing, and of course now it's used far more as a whole, but it originally was set up because it was sharing awesome photos. And there's something about the art of photography versus film. There's something about that moment, like you say, that there's that moment where where she relaxed her hands. There's the moment where Gordon Brown is standing in the right place. There's that moment where that person is so in their stuff that they are being their most impactful self. But there's a patience, as I think all creatives have to have. You can't push it, can you? You can't push, I can only give myself that 10 minutes. Because if you'd not stayed, because you were like, well, I've got to get the perfect shot of the keynote of the person who runs a big organization. If you'd pushed it, you wouldn't have been there at that last moment. And I think there's something really powerful about that, in not only in art and all of that side, but also in life, of not trying to push for that perfect moment, trying to push for that engagement piece.
Like I look at other photographers that are on on the clock, and they'll come in and they'll have another 3 things in Westminster, and that was just the one little thing they had to come in and get. Yeah. And they just find a seat and sit there and do the thing, and they'll get a shot and it'll be used, and they'll get the shot out quick and it'll be used. But what I'm doing isn't that I do some press stuff, but even the press stuff, I choose what I'm going to do. It's not that type, I make sure that I get the shot that I want to go out.
And what led you down the path of photography? Because it is your voice as a photographer. I feel that we have you have a very clear voice, you have a distinctive style. What led you to play in that art form?
Um, hmm, I don't know. My brother got a camera when he was 18 and wasn't really that into it. My dad always took photographs. He was a banker, and every time we went on holiday, he'd be taking a time exposure of in the church and some really great.
Right.
But he never actually knew what he was doing. He just did it by instinct. And I used to do it by instinct until I did a foundation art course, and they went, "Where's your light meter?" Like, what? I'm just, I just did this stuff. And then I had to relearn, and then wouldn't learn, that makes it stronger. But I did pharmacy that was supposed to be my first degree, and I studied in Belfast, but I studied alongside I call it day release, but when when you're working in the hospital, the pharmacy, and then you're also studying and everything else. So I had to come to somewhere, so I was Portsmouth or Plymouth or somewhere, to the university to do another two terms or something to be able to transfer that into a UK pharmacy degree. And I took a year out, and my father 10 years later was saying, "Am I not getting a pharmacist?" And I'm like, "No, Dad." So I did a foundation. I basically stopped, looked around and thought, I don't fit. This is not me. As much as I was this timid, square little girl who probably looked like everybody, similar to everybody else, but it just, in my heart of hearts, there was something that drove and said no. I don't know what that was, but there was something that was screaming and saying no. I also am dyslexic, so I always thought that if I spell something back to front one day, I might kill somebody. So
That is that.
was
should
also
almost be
driving
Yeah.
force. So, and I did a foundation art with several different art forms. I love painting, but no one actually seen my vision.
Foolish people, foolish.
So I did a photography and graphic design degree in Staffordshire University. Did very little graphic design, really. I did it all. It was all my stuff's very, very photography based, and did a little bit of AV as well. And then in the long run, I ended up running as head of production at Magnum Photos, which was like the ultimate of jobs, other than being a Magnum photographer. But it was an amazing job because I was meeting all my heroes, and as a Belfast girl, I grew up on war photography, and I was meeting Philip Jones Griffiths and Eve Arnold and Inga Morath and and Crystal Perkins, these amazing photographers. And what I noticed was that they're the amazing, beautiful personalities and the difference of them. And then one day I had the courage to actually show my portfolio to Philip Jones Griffiths, who Philip Jones Griffiths did Vietnam and Korea and type of photography that made me want to be a photographer. And I'd come over to London when I was about 18. My brother lived in London as a dental technician, making false teeth and stuff for Tina Turner and Pope John Paul I and II and whatever else. So anyway, he took me to the Hayward exhibition at the Hayward Gallery with the Magnum exhibition in our time, and it blew my mind. And then, there was something that drove me that's what I wanted to do. I still would love to do, inside here is a war photographer that wants to be on the front line. But that's a whole other conversation about how war photography's changed and how we have to be more respectful of people, etc. But I was doing a bit of that in Magnum, where I was editing like the Kosovan War and the Bosnian War, and for the news cycle around the world, and it was really interesting. But I have so much empathy. I'd have been in tears the whole time if I think I was away.
Yeah, I mean, coming back to your earlier answer about, you're picking up emotions and things like that. And I think to go and be in those, conflict zones and where you're witnessing the challenge and the worst of humanity and sometimes the best of humanity, I think it would be hard. And isn't it interesting what you said there, that because I think for a lot of us, we can ignore that inner voice. I'm sure you've met, in your time, you and I get to play in lots of different worlds, and we've got to meet some awesome humans. And quite often when you just sort of scratch the surface, they kind of go, oh, I wish I could have done that, or I always wanted to do that. And isn't it interesting that your younger self went, yeah, no, this isn't my tribe. I can't stay in this world of pharmacy. And you had that courage to go, I'm going to go and do something different. And and to go to your dad, yeah, no, I'm not going to be that. And those moments, those are those choices that we make. And I think sometimes we don't always give ourselves that permission to do that. And also that permission to go, yeah, I did good, because you and I have not had conventional career paths. I was meant to go and carry on being a sales director and then become a global sales director. That was meant. And I was, I was like, no, I want to be an actor. I want to be a performer. And then, and then we've kind of got to a place where we both run businesses and work with various different people. And you just have to have that moment. And I guess if you're listening to this, it's that moment of, have you listened to yourself, and are you following really how you want to impact the world, right?
Yeah, like it wasn't a straight line from that photography degree to this.
No, of course.
I've done, I ended up working, I did a quick synopsis. I left photography, I left my degree, I became a makeover photographer, one of those, glam and glitzy photographers where you photograph people who get made up and make them look like film star. Didn't like the ethics of that. Ended up moving to Australia. No, I ended up working PR photographer in a hospital in Leeds. Then moved to Australia, did a bit of photography, did a lot of stand-up comedy.
Also got bitten a lot, very successfully.
Did that
a lot, very well.
Which,
yeah.
And to that, from that to this day, I always think, well, it'll make a good story on the retelling. No matter how desperate or awful the experience, I go, yeah, but it's going to make a great story. If I get through it, it's going to make a great story. So I did stand-up comedy and dance. I was lead dancer and at a Pride New Year's Eve party, which is huge, and stage manager. Then came back to Belfast, did medical photography for a while. Got a job in Magnum Photos, went over doing duping technician, which was quite a basic job, and then ended up head of production. Then went into Metro Imaging and was head of Metro Art, which is a lab for printing shots of Madonna and all of these big top shots, top photographers work, and then left that and got a job as a running a TV research company for an Australian company in London, which predicted the ratings, and did that for a couple of years. And that was fun because all of a sudden I was earning a decent amount of money. So I was going on lovely holidays and taking the most amazing photographs because I was able to travel and I hadn't got the stress of peddling my photography or doing that. And then that didn't work for so long. And then another friend, one of those angels in my life, Dave Brennan, who I had employed as a consultant in the TV research company, he got in touch with me and said, I want somebody to work with me in my next job. And I said, Dave, I'd work anywhere with you, because I knew I needed a mortgage coming out of a relationship at the time. And he said, I haven't told you where it is yet. And I'm like, when you go, yeah, I'm committed, I'll do anything for you. But actually, it's working with the Daily Mail. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll do it. So I ended up research manager and marketing research manager at the Daily Mail for a while. He stayed 6 months and moved on, and I ended up there 6 years. I don't know how, but in that, and I wasn't directly working with the Daily Mail, but in that I got, money is something, it gives you the choices. It might not make you happy, but it gives you choices. And having a regular salary like that gave me choices. It let me get a bit of kit. It let me, also, you would think that I would have the courage to walk across the floor and say, give me some photography work. Didn't work like that. We didn't even know where the journalists sat in the whole of Derry Street. It was such a, I think it's called a Chinese wall, where there's no mix, between the sales side and whatever else. But I did start doing photography for Mail on Sunday, doing their readers events and stuff like that. So that was great fun. And I was doing a lot of, if they had big parties and stuff like that. And that helped. And another angel who, one of those influencers, Linda Grant, was my director. And she, at one stage, there's another lovely friend, Owen Powell Jones, had told me, you dress for the job you want, you go into work and act. What job do you really want? And there was through that time, the universe kept pushing these people in front of me that were answering questions that I didn't know I wanted asked. Didn't want to know I wanted answered. So there was Owen, who would pull me out of depression and write, what do you really want to do at once? And got me into that mindset of talk to the people in the business that you want to, and act that job. So I noticed that the sales guys didn't understand what online was. So I started talking and hanging out with the head of online sales. And we ended up, long the short of that was, I created a film to sell mail online. And it sounds terrible now, because now you know how desperate whatever it is. But I created a film, and Linda Grant really believed in me. And she said, well, go and find people who will film it. You recruit the people, and, you organize the thing. It's your baby. And then when I brought in the quotes, etc., for filming it, she went, do you know what? I think I know who I want to do it. I think you should do it. I've never done anything like this in my life. Yes, okay. And it was one of those. Wow. And also Dave, who brought me in, would always kept in touch with me. And he said one day, you know what, I think you need a mentor. I've got someone on, Lindsay Clay from Thinkbox gave me a couple of hours one evening to try and work out where I wanted my career to go. Yeah. And I remember walking away from that. I've really wasted that girl's evening, because I don't want anything to do with research and marketing. I want to be a photographer.
Wow.
And she was running, she was, I think, president of WACL at that time, and she was running their conference, Women in Advertising and Comms, in London. And they're all CEOs and owners of companies and stuff. And I went along, I said, well, you're running your conference, I'll photograph to ease my guilt of wasting 3 hours of this woman's life.
Right.
I said, I'll photograph well, we've never had a photographer there. It's all Chatham House Rules. And I'm like, but you're using it's for younger women, and they want to see what's happening. So it would be really good.
Wow.
So I did that. So I was starting to do that photography. Linda Grant gave me this big film piece, and it really linked in with everything. So I sort of feel like, as much as I've had a squiggly, twisty, turny, every experience along the way has created something. You know, if I'd have gone, and I did try between the TV research and working with Associated Newspapers to try and be a photographer in London on my own, it's impossible. You need a network, and I hadn't got my network yet. Where the Mail, working there, lots of people have moved on. I now work in advertising where they all were working. I've built that through WACL, and then going to that conference a couple of years in a row, one not photographing it, two not photographing it, and then photographing it. We decided we'd start Bloom, which is for younger women in advertising and comms, loosely based in London, but just so that we could actually give back and mentor, and I'm now chair of that. We started that in 2010. But there's like all of these lovely experiences that have created me. It's not like I've just gone,
I love that. And thank you for sharing that, because it's that thing, isn't it? It's that taking a beat, taking the opportunity, finding yourself in the right place. And as you say, it is that thing of, we all need a network. We all need our people that are our cheerleaders. We all need those people that go, no, you can go and do that. And then also, that thing of going, okay, I'm going to yeah, I don't want to waste anybody's time. So then I can do this, and then that opportunity, then that impacted you, and then et cetera, et cetera. Bro, I could talk to you for hours about you, your life, and everything else like that. But I'm aware of your time, and of course, my good listeners' time. If people want to find out about you and your work, where do they go? Where do they go on the beautiful thing called the interweb? Where do they go?
You can look up some of my portfolio, well, a shed load of my portfolio on bronamcneill.com. That's two L's.
Awesome.
So it's Bronac. The name I get called Bro, but my the full name is Bronac, and then which is the beauty of sorrow, I've been told. I know. So when I hit 40, I thought just call me Bro because the knack is the ugly bit. So let's get
Yeah.
leave the
Yeah.
beauty in. So
Yeah. Just be like, I am just beauty.
yeah, beauty, beauty, beautiful,
Beauty. Beauty.
beautiful,
Beauty.
beautiful course. So yeah, it's bronamcneill.com.
All right.
And then also on Instagram, although I'm not as prolific on Instagram as my people would like me to be.
Well, I will make sure that those links are in the show notes. Bro, thank you so much for coming on the Comic Coach podcast with me, Em Stroud. I knew I was going to love it. I knew you were going to go, my brain was going to go, oh, wow, cool.
Thank you. Sorry, you didn't get a word in edgeways. Sorry.
Perfect. It's exactly as it should be. Thanks, my love.
Thank you, darling. Bye.
The Marvelous Bro. There are so many things, aren't there? You know, in people's journeys and how we make these different decisions and how we end up being who we are and how we make these decisions that then have massive impact on how we are in our lives and how we're perceived and different decisions. And I think the thing that really landed with me for her, I mean, there were loads of different things, but it was as she was explaining that her journey, you know, the nuance of it, the challenge, as she said, you know, that winding world. It was that thing that underneath what she was saying for me was she always did know that she wanted to do photography. So it was always probably going to come out. And when I think about all the different people that I've worked with and myself and everything else like that, it's that thing of, you know, we do all know deep down what we really want to do. And we know the impact on us when we squash it. And we also know the impact on us when we start doing it. And I mean, the very fact that I'm doing a thing called the Comic Coach podcast is because, yeah, you know, I love doing comedy. I also love coaching people. And it's like, oh, okay. And maybe it's taken me until now, until, you know, sort of sitting here in 2024, for me to really, really realize just how much it's having the courage to really pay attention to our own voice, because then that impacts us on how we live our lives, right? And just as I ponder it, I'm curious to ask you this. When did you take that moment to really ask yourself, what really makes my heart sing? It's such a simple question, but it's one that I ask people on quite a regular basis. And some people can't give me an answer. And we only have this one life. And for me, one of the biggest changes, one of the biggest impacts that we can have in our life is just really acknowledging this is what makes my heart sing. And it can be as simple as anything. But if we're not allowing ourselves to do it, then are we allowing ourselves the possibility of being as content and as happy as we can be? So I'll let you ponder that. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Comic Coach podcast with me, Em Stroud. Do, if you've liked it, tell your friends, it's new. Subscribe, it's new. Yeah, I have people from every different walk of life booked in to come and chat about how they've created impact in their own life and also as leaders of themselves and then other people. So honestly, this is going to be awesome. You and me, we're going to learn a lot. Have a cracking week, and I'll catch up with you next week. Thanks for listening.